Team. On today's YouTube Live, we're going to be discussing the common reasons why AI investments fail at companies, despite the millions of dollars that are invested and the small militia of PhDs that they employ. Can't wait to get into it with you. Starting now.
Round one, fight!
Team. I'm Marcus, and I love strategy, and I love the intersection of strategy with AI, with technology, with emerging technology. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about AI and that intersection, and some of the things that I've seen. Either through coming into a company after a bad AI implementation was done, or watching one be done from afar, or some of the studies that I've come across in my reading. We're going to be discussing the top and common reasons why AI investments fail. And there's a lot. If you don't know, the, over the last 5-10 years, many companies have been trying to play catch up. They read a couple of articles from Gartner and the likes, and found out that their competitors and the folks that were going to unseat them was already using AI. And there were some really good use cases or companies that came out that showed the value and the power of leveraging AI to move your business faster. And so, what did every company do? They decided to invest ASAP. And sometimes it happened in different ways. Sometimes it was a leader within the business, but not at the top, that says we need AI now, and they're trying to drive their org forward. But it's a little bit, maybe not in line with the rest of the company. Sometimes it was top down, and the rest of the company was looking like, what are we doing and why are we doing this? There's a lot of reasons why AI investments fail. And what I've done today is I've put together four of those that I've seen in the last, let's say, year or two, be the most common. And I want to talk about the first one. I will go ahead and get into the first one, which is a misalignment to the business. They fail because they are not aligned to the business. And what does that mean? Essentially, what you see a lot of times is that a leader within a part of a capability within the organization, they will say, we need to implement AI. They may have their own budget that they can use to their own discretion. And so they say, you know what, I got some budget for it. I know this is going to put us ahead. I can't wait to wow my colleagues. And so they go after it. They implement this AI. They may even tell the rest of the business what they're doing, but what happens is it's happening at this one level, and they bring in these data scientists. And they may have a program manager, and they develop some use cases, and they try to find the best use cases that will provide the best ROI and have the best bang. And it ends up being just disjointed from the overall business, right? A prime example of that is if, let's say, there is HR org, right? And the CHRO says we need AI. We need AI to help us out, right? So they hire, they bring in a team, or they tell folks to go, and here's their budget, and they say, give me the biggest, best bang for my buck, right? And because it is done so quickly, a couple of use cases are built, and let's say the number one use case built is we're going to use AI to weed out candidates, right? And that is certainly a use case, and we've read some articles about how that has played out for certain companies. But let's say in this company, they have an actual business value, business strategic goal to hire more candidates that meets 10 strategic roles, right? However, they have this AI use case that now they've built this whole model, and the model isn't really aligned with the way where the business is going and how the business maybe has shifted for that quarter. And now it's weeding out all of the good candidates that company might have needed to move its business value forward. That's one way that plays out. There's a multitude of ways that this plays out. Sometimes the net profit value or the perceived ROI for that use case is developed by people who don't actually do the work, who don't actually aren't in the numbers. And those numbers are pulled from reports without a true understanding of how that use case, once it's operationalized, how it could really make a difference, right? And sometimes it's just disjointed in the way that it is a pie in the sky, but when you really talk about deploying, there's no true way to deploy that as an actionable decision for the business. In the way that they do it. They do their business and their process. So this is some of the many ways that it can be misaligned from the business, misaligned from the value that's in the business. If you have experienced that, if you have been a part of one of those projects, I'd love to hear about it. Put something in the chat or send me a note. I'd love to hear about it and learn about more other ways where misalignment happened. But I want to keep us going. I want to talk about the next common reason that I have seen AI investments fail, and that is disparate data and systems. And this is a big one to me because it seems obvious, right? You go after an AI investment, you want to build up this capability. It takes data and systems, right? It takes data and technology. And sometimes what you find is that the organization really isn't ready. The IT organization isn't ready. The data management and the data governance isn't ready. The data quality isn't there, right? And what you find is these data scientists having to wear 5 different hats just to get data in a timely fashion that's clean and has been normalized that they can do their work on, right? And so the job becomes more of that than it is actually building models and deploying those models and then retraining those models to develop more value and get more accuracy, right? And that will strangle your efforts. In fact, it will stop it in a lot of cases. Some cases, the InfoSec team has put in a lot of really good policies, but those policies don't pay respect to the way that AI applications and capabilities and environments need to operate to move things forward, right? And so what you find is that there's ports aren't open, policies prohibit certain tools and things from being used, and now you have this Frankenstein monster of an AI capability or a platform, and it is not fun. And so that is another reason why AI investments may fail, because you might spend majority of that funding and investment trying to work ways around all of these inefficiencies in your IT infrastructure, in your IT organization, in your data. We're not even talking about data governance and data management and data quality, which there'll be a whole another YouTube live on that. All those things haven't been ironed out. And so now your data scientist doesn't get to be a data scientist. They get to be a jack of all trades, and they never get to the place where they want to be. In a lot of cases, they end up leaving your organization. And so that's reason 2. And by the way, these aren't necessarily top, but these are just common things I've seen across different places, different organizations, different industries that are kind of true whenever you see, that might be true whenever you see a failed investment. So I want to get into reason 3. Common reason 3 why AI investments fail. And this one may shock some folks. It's the operating model. Some folks aren't familiar with operating model. Some folks have heard it and they're like, that's just a word that consultants use to come and ask for a lot of money. But no, it's actually really important. Operating models are the organizational design that helps everyone to know the value that is produced and how the objective is met. Basically, it's the ways of working, right? And so imagine if you build this AI model and you have this beautiful platform, and let's say you've gotten past some of the other things that we talked about, but you have this model and you're ready to deploy it, but your data scientist doesn't have an ML engineer to help them, or your data scientist doesn't have somebody on the infrastructure side to help them with pushing the models through, or scientist doesn't have a true way to deploy it to the business, or there is missing roles that helps for the deployment of that. The process hasn't been reevaluated about where's the right place for this to be inserted and how is it inserted and how is it not disruptive to the actual work. So sometimes it's just thrown at the business and the business is like, that's good to see. And there's no real good way for them to know how to take that information and do something different. There's a lot of different things that comes into play when we talk about operating models. Those are some of them. I'm a growing fan of operating models. Two things: operating models and change management when it comes to technology, because they're often overlooked, and you end up doing some cool project and your organization isn't able to handle it, isn't able to maintain it, isn't able to sustain it. And so this is another thing that comes into play when you're thinking about doing an AI investment. Do you have the right organizational design to make that AI investment go the long run and get your full ROI? And so that is reason number 3. And I have another reason, maybe my favorite reason, and you might be able to guess what. It is an incomplete or missing strategy altogether. I cannot stress this enough. A lot of times with these big transformational things or these big innovative things, the strategy is just missing. And you might say, well, Marcus, what do you mean by that? Well, a lot of times what you'll see is organizations will gather some use cases for why they would use AI and how they would use it and what's the ROI of that. They may even build a roadmap, and then they hire the right folks and they say, all right, we have our roadmap, we have our project plan, we're going to go build this thing. And the right respect hasn't been given to evaluating those use cases and assessing the organization and its ability to really leverage that use case. Is the data ready? Are the people ready? All those things. We talked about operating model. Is that covered? Is that there, right? I kind of touched on business process re-engineering. What would that look like? When do we do it? How do we do it so we can do this? How do we do a POC and we really get good data to help us understand what that is? The number one thing that I see missing when I look at business cases about failed AI investments, some things that I've heard about, some things that I've seen from afar, is the obstacles are not identified. And then the project becomes a matter of firefighting, literally firefighting throughout the extent to get use cases built and hopefully deployed. And in a lot of cases, they never get deployed. They just become really cool science projects. And this is the reason why you need strategy. You need a strategy that encapsulates what are the people that you need. Where's your data and how do you get your data to the right place and in the right quality? What is the ways of working and how can you make the ways of working easier for your data scientists and your AI organization? What does it look like to mature? What does the best case scenario look like? You can't just take use cases and say, this is what I want the most and do that. What's the prioritization? How do you do that? Strategy, doing a true strategy helps you to pull that all together. And that is one of the main reasons why AI investments fail. I've loved talking about this. I did YouTube Live because I don't want to make this too formal. I want to just talk and then hear what you guys think about it. If you have been a part of an AI investment, or if you have seen some reasons why AI investments fail, I want to hear about it. Put it in the comments. Shoot me a tweet or whatever. I don't know what the kids are doing these days, but this is a topic I'm passionate about, that I focus on, and I'm looking forward to bringing more topics to you all. With that, I will say, I wish you the best of luck in all your AI endeavors, whether you are a doer or a decider, whether you're an engineer or a data scientist, whether you're somebody on the fringes thinking about getting into it, whatever it is, I wish you the best of luck. And if there's any way I can help, reach out. I'll talk to you guys soon.